possibly put into words? Like, do you even remember what you thought? So for the fans who are watching this and may not be fully up to speed because it's, an MMA audience for the most part here, you're wrestling a guy named Ridge Holland, and he does, I guess, was it like a belly to belly? Would you call it that, or a German suplex? What would you call it?
It's an overhead belly to belly suplex.
Okay.
Yep.
And you end up falling on your head and breaking your neck, correct? Do you remember
Yeah.
anything about those moments like immediately after the move?
Yeah, no, I remember it all vividly. So I didn't go out at all, but yeah, so this was on SmackDown, and we did this is something that I do in my comeback all the time, something that's very routine for me, and it just went awry, and I landed on my neck and I guess actually loaded my head, and it's an injury that often occurs in like diving accidents when the pool is very shallow and you're going head first and you're making contact with your head. And so I have had a Jefferson fracture of my C1 and then also broke my C6 as well. And the Jefferson fracture means my C1 was broken in a couple places. And for a lot of people just die instantly from this. But to backtrack a little bit, so the bump happens, and I can tell right away something something went awry, but I didn't think it was that severe. I thought maybe I had a contusion or a sprain. I've had no neck issues before. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but immediately EMTs rushed over, and salute to all the doctors and EMTs and everyone because they made sure I wasn't going to move. My thought was, let me just make sure I'm okay. My fingers, I was so thankful that I could move my hands. I didn't seem to have any, like, there was no nerve pain, no tingling. So I wasn't that worried. Thankfully, also, there's such an, like, our go to for people that get injured for so many of the injuries is people get sent to Birmingham because they have such a great staff for orthopedic injuries. And we happened to be in Birmingham that night. So it was a very short ride to the hospital. And I really just expected to be told that, hey, your neck is sprained. It's, be out for a month. But they told me, pretty soon after running a battery of tests and everything that I indeed had broken my neck. And they let me know how severe it was. And in that moment, I felt, in many ways, it felt like a bullet whizzed by my head. I felt like the breeze of a bullet went by my head because I very quickly learned that a lot of people die instantly from the same kind of injury. And if they don't die, if your C1 is displaced in a certain way, it can travel towards your brain stem, and it can either lead to stroke, it can lead to paralysis or death. And for me to come out of all of that with no nerve issues, no atrophy, to still be alive, honestly, is pretty incredible. So it's interesting. I didn't spiral or have these feelings of why me. I just really was wildly thankful that I'm still here and that my body functions the way I wanted to.
Wow. So I just have a few follow ups because that's obviously an incredible story. If this happens to, say, someone who looks like me, probably one of those things, right? Like you are a huge guy, a strong guy, massive neck, massive upper body. That probably saved you, correct?
Yeah, I had multiple doctors tell me that, like, I was amateur wrestling in middle school and high school. So I've been doing neck bridges since I was a kid, doing neck exercises in college football, also in wrestling as well. And actually, one of the things, it's one of the things that I just lapsed with. And in a roundabout way, thankfully, I herniated a disc. It wasn't a big deal a couple years ago with my neck. And for rehab, they had me start to get back into doing neck exercises. So I've been doing stuff with stability balls at the gym the last couple of years, and who knows if that would have saved me or not. But to think that if I hadn't been someone who had constantly been doing neck exercises, I could be dead right now.
And no surgery.
No surgery. Yeah, I did talk with the doctors recently, and surgery's off the table, so I'm thankful for that. And in the moment, they didn't suggest surgery either. So it's interesting with this fracture. I've learned a lot. There's a lot of differing ideas. Like, there's some doctors who will say surgery right away, and the way they do surgery is very different. So there's a lot of different approaches to how to treat a Jefferson fracture.
And did they tell you back in March, and have they told you something differently now about your return to the ring? Like, will you be able to resume wrestling?
Well, I was told initially at the hospital in Birmingham, it was, in 3 months you'll be back to doing what you always do. But I think when we got our first set of scans at the 8 week mark, actually the doctor I saw said my neck actually looked worse after 8 weeks, because I think sometimes with the healing process, it's not always linear, and sometimes it just didn't look the way that they wanted it to. And then we got another look at about the 12 week mark, and unfortunately, the bone wasn't ossifying. So my C1 looks like it healed fibrously. So it was intact enough where they weren't worried about someone bumping into me and me re-breaking my neck. But it's not solid enough right now for me to be able to go back into the ring. So I actually got a chance to talk to Dr. Maroon in Pittsburgh, who has worked with WWE for a long time. And the plan is to look at my neck again at a year, so March of next year, and then make that prognosis of whether I can wrestle again.
What are you thinking? What are you feeling right now? Do you think it happens?
That I'm unsure of. I've also talked to a couple of doctors who told me like, hey, if you break this again, it could be even worse. It could be even more catastrophic. And these are spine specialists. I also think I had this sobering moment where I was in the hospital, and I've been an athlete my whole life, and it's all I've known, and it's what I've loved. But when they asked me my medical history, the first 18 years of my life, completely fine. But since then, I tore my left ACL playing college football at Iowa, tore my right ACL almost a year to the day. I've torn my left pec. I've torn my right meniscus. Left meniscus. Broke my right patella. While wrestling, I've herniated discs in my lower back. I've had the herniated discs in my neck. And also now I have a broken neck in multiple places. So I put my body through a lot. And I think when I got hired at 23, when I was 23, you just have a different perspective of life. And also, I just had a lot of struggles with my mental health as well. I think, not that I had a death wish per se, but I think there was a time in my life that if I died in the ring, cool. I got to do what I loved, and I went out in the ring. But now at 36, after working through a lot of those things, after being mentally healthier, man, this job has allowed me to meet so many incredible people from so many different walks of life and have so many different experiences. And now, I don't know, man. I think of life after 36, and I see so many of the guys that I grew up watching in wrestling. I think too of the athletes that I love who participated in MMA or were boxers, and you see them at 50 and you see their body ravaged, and that's not the life that I want. My hope is I feel great now, and I'm grateful for that. But to keep putting miles and damage on my body, like that's something I have to think about. And I feel like I have a lot more to live for now than I did years and years ago. Or at least I just I have a lot of things that I want to do in my life. So